Did you know there was once a king whose cruelty was so legendary, his enemies feared him more than death itself? This isn't just a story whispered in the dark corners of history, it's a chilling reality that echoes through the ruins of an ancient empire. I'm talking about Ashurbanipal, the Assyrian ruler of the 7th century BCE, the man who literally fed his enemies to dogs. His name alone was enough to send shivers down the spines of neighboring kings and rebellious subjects alike. Now, Ashurbanipal didn't just rule with an iron fist. He ruled with a mind sharpened by ambition and a heart hardened by endless conflict. He ruled with a fist wrapped in barbed wire. His reign was a masterclass in psychological warfare, where terror was as much a weapon as the sword. If you rebelled against him, you weren't just risking your life. You were gambling with your very soul, as Ashurbanipal's punishments were designed to haunt survivors and witnesses for generations. You were risking an ending so gruesome, it's hard to imagine, unless you look at the records he left behind. These weren't just stories passed down by terrified subjects. They were official accounts carved in stone and clay for all to see. In his own inscriptions, Ashurbanipal brags about his justice. He wanted the world to know exactly what happened to those who dared to defy him. What does that mean? Well, for starters, he talks about flaying rebels alive. Yep, peeling their skin off while they were still breathing. And it gets worse. He didn't just punish, he made a spectacle of suffering, turning executions into public warnings. He boasted about feeding prisoners to ravenous dogs. This wasn't just a one-off horror story. It was a calculated act, repeated enough times to become a symbol of his reign. It was a show of power. Every act of brutality was a message carved into the very stones of his empire. Defy me, and you will suffer beyond imagination. Imagine being paraded through the city, knowing you were about to become a feast for the royal hounds, while crowds, and worse, soldiers, laughed at your misery. The terror wasn't just in the act, but in the anticipation, the humiliation, the utter helplessness. The evidence isn't just in his writings. Archaeologists have uncovered chilling proof in the very walls of his palaces, where the stories of his cruelty are immortalized in stone. His palace walls were decorated with reliefs, these grand stone carvings, showing dogs literally tearing human limbs apart. These weren't just decorations, they were warnings, reminders of the king's absolute power. And the Assyrian soldiers in the background? Sometimes they're shown grinning, even laughing. The message was clear. Cruelty was not just tolerated, it was celebrated. Ashurbanipal wanted everyone, his people, his enemies, and us, thousands of years later, to know just how far he'd go to crush anyone who opposed him. His legacy was built on fear, and he made sure it would never be forgotten. But here's what's wild. For all this brutality, Ashurbanipal also saw himself as a civilizer, a builder of libraries, a lover of learning. He wasn't just a destroyer, he was a preserver of knowledge, a paradox in a blood-soaked crown. He collected thousands of clay tablets, medical texts, stories, even the famous Epic of Gilgamesh. His library at Nineveh became one of the greatest repositories of knowledge in the ancient world. So how do you square this? A king who preserved civilization, but also made war crimes into public theater? Was he a monster who loved books, or a scholar who ruled through terror? Maybe it was all about fear. In a world where kingdoms rose and fell overnight, Ashurbanipal understood that terror could be as effective as any army. In a world where power was everything, Ashurbanipal made sure no one ever forgot who was in charge. His methods were brutal, but his message was clear. Challenge the king, and you challenge death itself. And honestly, his legacy is still debated. Was he a monster, a genius, or both? Some see him as a tyrant, others as a visionary who shaped the ancient world. Let me know what you think in the comments. Would you have survived in Ashurbanipal's world, or would you have become another warning carved in stone? And if you want more dark corners of history, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching.